Hello, I'm Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity and creator of Bogash Life and Balance. And today we're going to talk about a interesting study looking at, they use the term multivitamins, but it's actually just looking at individual vitamins. And in particular, they looked at this large group of patients, so almost 8,300, so 8,295. They looked at the status of vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin C, and folic acid, and their intakes of them. And interestingly enough, the first three are all fat-soluble vitamins, and I have certainly written a lot about vitamin E and how not all vitamin E is created equal, and there are problems with taking the wrong type of vitamin E supplement. But one of the things I do need to say is we have this idea of how much of something that we need. So like vitamin A, you're looking at night blindness. So vitamin A deficiency, looking at things like night blindness and immune function problems, because we use vitamin A a lot for secretory IgA, which is the immune system that fights things off like respiratory viruses in the mucosal lining of our nose and our throat and our gut. So that's why people with vitamin A deficiency may have things like diarrhea and respiratory infections, because they can't fight stuff off. But we have a concept called conditionally essential, so that the typical deficiency of vitamin A is something like night blindness, where we have problems seeing at night because the vitamin A deficiency, but the body may shunt resources. So like vision is important for survival. So if vitamin A is low, it may shunt whatever is left over to vision, but then it leaves things like the immune system wanting more, because vision is more important for immediate survival to our ancestors than is immune function. You're way more likely to die immediately falling off a cliff or getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger than you are from a respiratory viral infection that may take several days or weeks to knock you off. The other thing that's important is when you look at A and D, these two both work on the same type of cellular receptors. Vitamin D is actually a hormone, and it's the nuclear orphan receptor, so they work on the same receptors. You may have heard that, like, if you take magnesium, you need to take if you take calcium, you need to take magnesium to kind of balance that out, because we use the same transporters. And that's no different with vitamin A and vitamin D. So if somebody overloads on A, then maybe D levels or what vitamin D does is affected, and same thing in reverse. It's one of the reasons why I typically recommend supplementing both A, D, E, and K. I'm sorry, not E, but I do eat a lot of nuts. So A, D, and K as a fat-soluble vitamin. I do recommend routine supplementation. But this study looked at death, both cancer and all-cause death. And they kind of parsed out the groups, and they looked at the people who took the most A and D, and they compared it to the group who had the least intake. And a little staggering. In the time frame that they followed them on, there was a 33% lower risk of all-cause mortality. Now, vitamin D is probably not going to help you if you fall off a cliff or get in a car accident, but there's a lot of other conditions like cancer and heart disease and infections that can play a role in. So 33% lower risk of dying from any cause. Cancer-related mortality in the people that were taking higher levels of A and D were 55% lower. Like, that's pretty staggering from just a single intervention, or two if you count the A and D. But it certainly begs the question about what we should do. I do personally take vitamin D and vitamin A, and both of those are the emulsified form. I've already mentioned many times before that I take 6,000 IUs of vitamin D a day. I actually take it once a week, so 42,000 once a week. Dropping it out of the little dropper gives me carpal tunnel for my family. And vitamin A, I generally take. Vitamin A is very inexpensive from a supplement standpoint. I know Biotics, which is one of the ones I typically recommend, has 12,000 per drop. So we usually do 3 to 4 to 5 drops per week. So looking at around 10,000 per day. If somebody happens to be sick, I'll usually recommend much higher doses for a couple days. But I mean, it's a very inexpensive scenario to supplement with A and D. Safety levels generally are very high, so long as you're not going crazy level supplementation. But this is just a pretty staggering difference in all-cause mortality in people that had higher intakes of A and D. Pretty just phenomenal. So, as always, I'll post a link to this particular study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.